Hello and welcome back to NoBS. Today we return to talking about the biggest streaming service in the country and perhaps the world. I'm of course talking about Netflix. Netflix has shown itself to be increasingly woke over the years too. More specifically, over the past year, they've been siding with Democrats, leftists, and their far left ideology for a long time now. This has been proven by them hiring many former politicians and current Democratic politicians, including making documentaries with AOC, and both the Obamas, Barack and Michelle, have both had big long-running contracts with Netflix. This has also come out in the other programming they've made by it getting influenced by them too. Lots of pro-woke, alphabet-themed shows, drag-centered shows. There's been shows with young kids, like we've talked about that Cuties movie and its drama. And today we're talking about a new spin, a new angle, a new show/movie that Netflix just came out, which is basically a lady reboot of Sherlock Holmes. For those who don't know, Sherlock Holmes is the famous book series by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and it's essentially the quintessential detective novel. Sherlock Holmes is this super smart detective who has had many successful books in the past that have also been interpreted and translated into TV and film many times. Now, you could say Netflix's new take is a bit more refreshing or fresh because they're doing a lady reboot of it, but at the same time, it does fall in line with all their other woke stuff. So I really do think it's time to talk about it and get into some of these details and how they made a lady Sherlock Holmes. Essentially, it's Sherlock Holmes's younger sister that's featured in this movie. It's called Enola Holmes, and that's a strange name, and it's obviously a girl version of him. And we'll see how it all plays out because this isn't actually the first time this story and series has been girl washed, so to speak. They've had other feminist spin-offs over the past two. So we're going to talk about all those and the new one soon. We're going to get to the details and more, but first, let's take a quick moment to check out our sponsor. Right now, it's never a better time to support our Second Amendment and our right to bear arms and protect ourselves. I mean, think about all the chaos going on in this country. Now's never been a better time to get yourself some self-defense and exert your Second Amendment right here in the United States of America. And that's why I say we should also get these free gold coins to help represent that. These coins are being given away for free right now for a limited time, only if you click the link below this video. All you have to do is pay for shipping and you'll get these free gold coins with a beautiful weapon embroidered on them, and it's got American flag and a cool quote on the back. It's just really slick, really cool, and you could tell that you're a Second Amendment supporting American patriot. So if you're interested, if you enjoy this country and our rights and our Second Amendment right to bear arms, make sure you check out our exclusive link below and get yourself this free gold coin. All you have to do is pay for shipping. Thanks for your time today, and now back to the show. Great, now that that's out of the way, let's talk more about Sherlock Holmes and its feminist spin-off. This article has more details. It says, the curious case of Sherlock Holmes feminist spin-offs, Netflix's Enola Holmes is only the latest attempt to insert a female protagonist into Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's stories. Now, that I think is already part of the problem. Here we could see other examples. This is a lady Sherlock Holmes, apparently some sort of minority as well. I'm familiar with this Lucy Liu character. I believe she plays Watson in a TV version of Sherlock called Elementary, so they have like a female Asian Watson. This is the more recent Sherlock from the BBC series that was also featured on Netflix. That, of course, is Benedict Cumberbatch, one of my favorite portrayals, one of the great modern portrayals. But now we're going all the way to the front here. This is Enola Holmes. This is the new Netflix spinoff. She's the character from the Stranger Things series. She's called Millie Bobby Brown. That's the actress, and she's portraying like the younger sister of Sherlock. And before we even get to more details, I think we can already see the problem in its inserting a female protagonist into these stories. And it just goes to show this is the kind of style and the kind of lazy kind of reboots that a lot of leftists go for. They find another popular thing. Like, for example, in 2016, they decided they wanted a Ghostbusters movie. And instead of making their own Ghostbusting movie and, having it called something else like Girl Ghost Cops or something, they could have made a whole other thing. But instead, they want to insert it into the Ghostbusters, the official series, which of course started in the 80s. It was all dudes. It was Bill Murray and a couple of other great comic actors, Dan Aykroyd. And that was a great original series. But then inserting the females is where it's just kind of lazy and problematic and just woke. And a lot of times, in addition, they don't just go with it and have a cool story that happens to be a girl. They make it all about being a girl. Like, it's all about feminism and girl power. And also, in addition, a lot of feminists make the mistake of overly bashing bashing men. So part of like the feminist ethos, part of their sort of personality in the modern era is hating on men. So they bash men, which happened in Ghostbusters 2016. It's happened in many other lady reboots. Ocean's 11 had a lady reboot recently that had similar problems. And that's how I see this whole Enola Holmes thing too. It's trying to be feminist. It's trying to kind of steal shine from a more popular male character, which is just what happens in all these cases. It's like they can't make their own thing and try to get popular on their own. So they have to invade a male space and take it over and just totally pervert the whole point. When Dr. John Watson agreed to share lodgings with a friend of a friend in 1887's A Study in Scarlet, one of popular fiction's great oses was born. Inside the sanctum of 2021B Baker Street, Holmes and Watson existed in a fantasy of late Victorian homosociality, a cross between Oxbridge undergraduate life and feckless Bohemia. Their world was incomplete yet perfect, like all fantasies, as bewitching for what it excluded: regular hours, real jobs, sexuality, and its discontents. As for the pipe-smoking, disguises, and idle gunplay that is contained, Arthur Conan Doyle got tired of it all long before his fans did, and married Watson off to a woman who mattered so little to her creator that he could not remember if she was alive or dead, and he killed off Holmes himself in 1893. 10 years later, popular demand obliged Conan Doyle to resurrect the great detective, whereupon Watson moved right back to the Baker Street flat. These two friends lived forever, nurtured by the redoubtable Miss Hudson and perpetually ready to take on the next adventure. Fans all over the globe adore the bubble in which the Sherlock Holmes stories take place, but at the same time, many can't resist the urge to pop in. So we'll get more to that, but essentially we're recapping how Sir Arthur Conan Doyle tried to retire his character. He brought it back by popular demand. He created this wonderful detective character. Sherlock Holmes is legendary. You know, more details for those who don't know. He's just like super smart. He's a private detective too, so he's not really like cop or some kind of like authority figure. He just solves crimes and cases because it interests him, and he's got this like super high intellect, and he can always like spot the little details. Like he could see there's a little dust on your shoe. He could smell a little smoke on your jacket. Like he's got these like heightened senses, not like supernatural heightened, just like he's very, very alert and very, very smart, and he's critical thinking. He could solve problems and like think 10 steps ahead. You know, a lot of cool stuff in there. And the other interpretation I'd bring up here is a good interpretation was Sherlock Holmes played by Robert Downey Jr. That was actually a really good one. Him making that movie with, I believe, Guy Ritchie was a good series. There was 2 of them. I believe they might be making another follow-up later on. I was hoping and hearing about that recently, but essentially, yeah, that was a really good one. It used like slow motion and it showed him looking at little details, thinking ahead. It was just like a really well done way of getting into his mind and his thinking. And, you know, the BBC series Sherlock with Benedict up here, that had some similar things in it, and it's always going to be similar in each interpretation. But yeah, the point is he's this great super detective, really smart, and that's why the character's beloved, and that's why Conan Doyle had to bring it back. And then now that's why they're trying to lady reboot it and invade this space, which is just kind of cheap and lame, as we said before. Holmes is the prototype of a certain kind of male hero, aloof, ascetic, a proponent of pure rationalism, and ostensibly immune to emotion and snares of romantic love. Star Trek's Mr. Spock is another. Characters like this serve as batteries for the fanish imagination. They generate pastiches and spin-offs and vast databases of fan fiction. It's precisely because Holmes seems to lack ordinary human weaknesses that writers of all kinds want to imagine him succumbing to them, whether it's the addiction that compels him to undergo psychotherapy in this novel, or the secret passion for Watson himself in another series like the Sherlock TV series. One thing conspicuously missing from Sherlock Holmes' story is a significant female protagonist. Miss Hudson plays mom, underscoring that her tenants are just 2 overgrown boys, and Mary Watson, when she finally comes along, is a cookie-cutter angel in the house. And then there's Irene Adler, opera singer, adventuress, and one of only 4 people, as well as the only woman to outwit Holmes. After every afterword, according to Watson, the great detective referred to her as the woman, but she appears in only one of Conan Doyle's stories, A Scandal in Bohemia. So this is the character that ends up being like a romantic interest for Sherlock Holmes. And I remember Adler appeared in the BBC series, and she comes up when they do want to bring in a girl character. But really what's going on is they're getting at is Holmes is just not interested. Like he's just not interested in dating and hooking up and like having dates and girlfriends and stuff. Like there's just some people that never marry, you know, it's like almost like an asexual kind of thing. That's the way I saw it in some interpretations. It really depends on which one you're watching. I mean, I wouldn't even say that would be that far. It would just maybe be like, he's just too busy. He doesn't think about it. He might like girls and he might want to hook up one day and have a kid, but in the current time, he's just like one of those guys who just is always doing an experiment, always busy on something, you know, one of those like mad scientist types who doesn't really have it in them. And I think the reason this article is bringing it up is just to kind of bring up like there's not enough girls in the series. That's the whole point. That's the whole problem for them. But I don't see that as a real issue. I think that's only an issue if you're like looking at stuff and trying to think, hey, let's fill these check marks. Does it have enough women? Does it have enough minorities? Does it have enough, you know, woke messages? And I just don't judge things like that, especially art and movies and entertainment. Like some of them happen to have a lot of guys. Some of them have a lot of girls too. Like there's different kinds of movies. This is just the story and the way Sherlock Holmes tends to play out. And as the article goes on here, they finally talk about Enola. That's from the director of Fleabag. It stars the Stranger Things actor Millie Bobby Brown, as I mentioned earlier. That's the teenage sister of Sherlock Holmes, who is played by Henry Cavill. There's a Henry Cavill Sherlock in this movie, which is kind of cool. I mean, that's a great actor. You know, he played Superman. He's pretty cool. And the fact that he's in there as a side Sherlock Holmes side character is funny. But again, it's definitely pushing the girl power stuff and showing this whole thing where it's like, oh, we have to have a girl version. Enola is sweet and stylish, but also entirely predictable, right down to the mini exaggerations to defy convention, coming from such inspirational figures as Enola's mother and her suffragette friends. So we've got her mother being a suffragette, like fighting for women's rights, like literal feminist in this film. And albeit it's in the Victoria era, this is actually when the original feminists popped up and they had a point back then. You know, they actually had rights to fight for. There was like the right to vote and own property and stuff like that, depending on which country. I know this is set in Britain, usually London, but yeah, there was actually a need. These are like original feminists, but the fact that they're putting them in a Sherlock Holmes thing and making this new movie featuring stuff about them, it's obviously being brought up now in the present to get in on this woke stuff, to show that they're girl power. I'm sure when they pitch this movie, that's the kind of thing I like to think of, especially since South Park made that great joke about Netflix a few years back when they were goofing on them. Like the South Park boys were trying to pitch a show and they called Netflix and the guy's like, he's like, hello, you reached Netflix. You're greenlit. What's your story? And basically they answer the phone and they greenlit you without even knowing what your story is. Greenlight means they just approve your movie to be made, your show to be made. And in Netflix, in the South Park version, they were goofing on them because they just greenlight everything. They don't really think much about it. And the way I see this pitch, I believe Enola Holmes was probably pitched as a girl Sherlock Holmes. And Netflix was like, all right, here's $1 million, make the movie. You know, like it was on, like it was going from that point. And that's just showing you how simple and just feeble-minded these kinds of harebrained leftist ideas are. I'm sure this movie could be interesting too. It does have a good cast. Helena Bonham Carter is another cast member I'm familiar with up here. She's really good, and I'm sure it's interesting, but the greater point is the propaganda angle, the whole Sherlock being feminized and being kind of like made into this beta side character in his own series. I mean, surely he's had enough movies too, like we understand, like it's been done, and making a new take is interesting, but the fact of the matter is they're piggybacking on Sherlock Holmes's fame and they're making this feminist reboot, and it's being done by Netflix, one of the worst woke offenders of our lifetime. That about wraps things up. Hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Make sure you comment your thoughts on everything below. Also hit that like button to get this shared, subscribe if you're new, and hit the bell for notifications too. Until next time, have a great day.